Hi everyone, I'm Michael Monty. I'm a forward deployed engineer here at Anvilogic. In my previous life, I've been a tier 1 SOC analyst, doing work from detection engineering as well as your day-to-day triage from alerts. Today, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about allow listing and some of the challenges that are being faced with modifying allow list tables in order to ensure you have the right fields for filtering out the necessary noise from your channel, and how Anvilogic makes that a lot easier for you guys going forward. So typically, within Anvilogic itself, I want to go into my workspace inventory to understand some rules that I actually have to play. In this example, I'll use malicious document execution. And this specific rule is actually looking for any Microsoft or Adobe program spawning processes that could be indicative of those Office programs used to deliver malicious code. Now, if you have experience or you don't have experience within the security space and triaging malicious document executions within someone's environment, there's one thing that you should know, and that's that these can be fairly noisy, as document executions within environments is something that is pretty common within environments itself. Pivoting into our Anvilogic app, looking down into the query itself, it's looking for various different executables being spawned from documents, right? So it is possible that if this specific logic was deployed in your environment, it can contribute to a lot of noise and a lot of unhappy SOC analysts due to the noise that you're generating. Now, as a detection engineer or as a SOC analyst, through investigations of these specific types of alerts, you like to deem things as benign and then therefore not alert on these going forward. And that sort of introduces the concept of allow listing and why, from a security perspective, that is something that's important for you to do. Now, if I scroll down here, you'll see your specific fields that you have capabilities to allow list on. Normally, this is usually handled between CSVs and KV stores from a Splunk perspective, but concept of allow listing is not specific to Splunk. It can happen across all different SIMs, and in this example, we are leveraging Splunk to sort of showcase some of the features that are available within Anvilogic. Now, say that I did have a specific allow list available, and if I just pivoted over here, I can look into a typical CSV file that's managed for a specific rule itself. Now you can see that manually somebody uploaded this CSV to your SIM in order to apply filtering in a lookup file. The same concept could happen within KV stores as well. And it's just a different way of managing efficiency across large files for filtering against your initial search. Now, as these different lookup files are added, it makes it a lot more difficult to add additional fields as you find them see fit for the specific logic you're building. So pivoting back into the Splunk logic itself, for example, we have different fields that you can allow list on. Common ones that you can allow us on are user, process, a combination of user and process, a combination of process and parent process path, for example. Now, going back to the list here, it makes it a lot difficult to identify how to add or modify within that CSV file. Some of the common security practices are downloading an app for lookup editor, for example, to then modify different fields within the UI. You can run manual searches within the UI itself in order to output additional fields into your CSV file. But that is a lot of manual work. It definitely is a knowledge gap for people to have to do the necessary research in order to identify how to add fields to CSV files, thus leading to less efficiency within your SOC, and potentially cause for human error, as there are a lot of moving pieces in order to modify existing allow listing frameworks. So we've tried to make that a lot easier within Anvilogic itself. Pivoting into our triage dashboard, we'll show an example of a Fin6 attack ransomware scenario. As a part of that scenario, which is a layer 2 correlation of multiple threat identifiers, one being included that malicious document execution, we see an alert that has fired on glass. Now, if I pivoted down into this alert itself and wanted to investigate this further, and I did identify benign activity occurring from the malicious document execution. So for in this example, I did click down into this malicious document execution rule. Basically, it's indicating that a process of PowerShell is downloading a string from a specific URL. Now, say that URL is identified to be benign within the organization. This might be something that is a part of a existing process within a specific business that this is common activity for it to happen. Now, say that I didn't have process added to my allow list, and what you can see here are different icons that display green and also red. And I'll kind of talk through those a bit further, but as the example here, what I wanted to do is now allow this as a part of my existing allow list within this malicious document execution rule. Now, in order to do that, right, say that I wanted to include client host into my allow listing functionality. You can see that there is no AL here, which means that this field isn't actually existing within the allow list for this rule right now. So that introduces the challenge of, manually without Anvilogic, I would have to figure out how to add this field into the allow listing functionality so that then my SOC analysts are then able to allow list on client host. So pivoting into the allow listing field, I'll kind of show this in two different ways that you can do this. In this allow listing dashboard, you'll see different fields highlighted in red and regular fields here that are not highlighted in red. And these are basically the different fields that you can add to an allow list. So if, for example, I wanted to add an additional field for host, I can search host here, simply add that, create the field. And then what you'll see is that within my CSV file itself, I can then add an additional field for allow listing on host because that is showing up here. So rather than having to run any specific searches within Splunk or any of your other SIMs, for example, to try to manipulate a CSV file or a KV store in order to include that additional field for allow listing, you can simply just add them through our UI. And in the backend, that actually manages your allow listing. As you can see, as I updated the host here, you'll see my audit history as well. So in addition to making modifications or adding entries into your allow list, all of that auditing functionality to say, hey, Mike Monty added a field to this specific allow list is there and brought forward towards you. So it's easily to trace steps or review from a SOC manager perspective, what's going on with your allow listing, who has added allow listing to certain different rules, who's added different fields to certain allow lists. So that allows you to have that functionality from an audit perspective to say, I know exactly what's going on with my allow listing and what's actually being filtered from the existing rules in my environment. Now, pivoting back into the rule itself, I can also do this directly from my triage, right? So as an analyst, I want to be able to easily look at one single pane of glass in order to do the needful in terms of triage for an investigation. Now, being that I don't have client host and an allow listing symbol here to indicate that I can allow list on this field, I can simply right click on the field, add field to the allow list. It's then going to add my client host automatically into my UI. I can create the field. It'll reload that specific triage dashboard, and now you can see that allow listable field in client host. Now, so for example, if I wanted to add a LabWin 2016-02 into my allow list, I can simply right click, press add to allow list, and all the necessary fields that I have here will pre-populate the information. This is also beneficial for many reasons. People may not be copying and pasting events, and it leaves an opportunity for error, being that somebody can fat finger something or not completely copy the exact string that needed to be allow listed. We populate that information for you. And if you want, you can also eliminate specific fields from your list in order to ensure that you just want to allow us on certain fields. You can add a comment here as well. So for example, if I wanted to say for this specific rule, this specific URL is benign, and we continue with that example saying this belongs to a business application that normally conducts this activity. Now, say you reached out to this business unit within your organization, and they indicated that this activity will only happen for a specific time frame. If that is in fact the case, you can always set expirations as well. So if they let you know, within the next 30 days, we're going to have PowerShell or Windows spawning PowerShell to call out and download additional files. And if that's the case and it's deemed to be benign, and it's only going to be benign for 30 days, you can always set an expiration of these events. So what I'll do is actually set an expiration of this specific event. I will then add this to our allow list. And then if I did pivot back to the allow listing page for this specific rule, I will actually refresh this. And what you can see is that entry showing up here, right? And then also you can see here is that all the activity that I'm doing is still being audited. So now I have 3 entries that is tracking the different activity that I'm doing from an allow listing perspective. So that helps with the management. And then you can see here is this is a expired entry, which will show up in red to indicate that that is in fact something somebody added to the allow list. However, it is being filtered out because it's past the specific expiration for that rule. Pivoting back here, it's just to prove, what we're trying to do here is that make it a lot easier for an analyst to be able to quickly modify lookup files or KV stores in order to apply the necessary filtering for the specific fields, add the necessary fields directly from triage, and then also provide managers a good review of what actually is going on from an audit perspective around allow listing itself. I hope you enjoyed this quick presentation on allow listing, and feel free to reach out with any questions.